And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And I have a question for you, okay? Question is, what is the use of wizardry if it cannot save a unicorn? Okay? That question and many others are part of why I like the movie The Last Unicorn. Okay. Now, this is a really, really late movie review. I'm not even sure I would talk about a review as much as I love this movie. I've loved this movie since I was a kid, and it was it was sort of a foundational movie for me in a lot of ways. So, The Last Unicorn came out in 1982, okay? It's based on a book by Peter S. Beagle, who also wrote the screenplay for the movie, which is helpful in a lot of ways because he was able to pull out the important aspects of the book. It's like, this has to be here. And it worked out pretty well. The movie was made by Rankin Bass, and this is the same company that made all those claymation Christmas specials, right? You know, Rudolph and Frosty and all that stuff. Yeah, same company. But the animation studio they worked with was eventually became Studio Ghibli. Okay. So there's some history here, all right? Now, The Last Unicorn is fun. It tells the story of a unicorn who sets out to learn if she is the last of her kind. And after meeting a butterfly, yes, meets a butterfly, she learns of the legends that says that the unicorns had been pushed to the ends of the earth by the Red Bull. Okay, so she is now on a journey to figure out what's going on. And overall, the movie it's sort of a fantastical mix of times and eras, okay? Now, visually, it is very much, it very much places itself in a medieval type setting, okay? And in fact, that they based a lot of the arts off of a tapestry, and I cannot remember which one. They actually show it in the opening credits. But it's interesting because the book, when you read it, said it's got this weird mix of anachronistic stuff. Okay, even in the movie, even though it's set in a medieval appearing era, you know, the butterfly is singing songs about catching trains and singing high school fight songs and all this stuff, right? And when Beagle wrote the book, he apparently was deliberately writing himself into corners just to see how he could get out of it. And that leads to some really weird and fun things, right? Now, the cast in this is amazing. You've got Alan Arkin, you've got Mia Farrow, Jeff Bridges plays the Prince Lear. There we go. I can get words out. Angela Lansbury. Now, Angela Lansbury is amazing as the witch Mommy Fortuna. I don't think I'd ever seen Angela Lansbury do a villainous role, and she plays an amazing amazing witch. She does Angela Lansbury pretty well too, but she plays a pretty fun witch. Christopher Lee plays King Haggard, and apparently went at it with the same energy that he took and he brought to Lord of the Rings, because I guess Christopher Lee was a huge fan of the book, and was when he was reading lines. There was a day Peter S. Beagle was at the studio while he was recording, and Christopher Lee made sure that Beagle liked the way he was approaching the lines because it was his book, right? Christopher Lee had the same sort of determination with Lord of the Rings. So, that was kind of fun. And heck, Jeff Bridges, I think he said, did the movie for free because he loved this book so much. Okay? Another name I thought was kind of funny to see show up was Renee, and I always mispronounce his last name, Albert Jonas, who played Odo on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Yeah, he's got a small bit role here playing the voice of a talking skull. It's like, huh, okay, cool. And then you've got Paul Frees, who's a prolific voice actor through the 60s and 70s. Okay. Even if you don't recognize the name, he did the voice of Kubla Kraus in the Jack Frost special. He was when Santa Claus is Coming to Town, he did the Burgermeister Meisterburger. Right, he does a bunch of different stuff. Okay. So yeah, the actors are great. The acting and directing I kind of worry about, because there are some times there are times it feels like the pace of the dialogue is wrong. And I'm not entirely sure why. Okay, I don't know if it's because it almost feels like it was dubbed, but I believe this was an English first film, so I don't know. I don't know. There are a few places just feels off. Molly Grew, the character of Molly Grew, voiced by Tammy Grimes in particular, feels like there are some issues, and I don't know exactly what it is, but you know, it's still fun. Now, the other thing you might notice, and you might feel, I certainly feel it sometimes, is the music in the movie feels a bit dated. Now, the musical score is fine. The score is great. There are a number of songs in the movie that were written by the band America, okay, which was, again, a very prolific 70s band. And while it never feels like disco, you get that sort of feel to a number of the songs, okay? So, yeah, some of that may feel dated. However, the theme song, The Last Unicorn, is one that just rips me apart, and I love it. I love that song. So, yeah, there are a few parts, it's like, okay. I'm not entirely sure Mia Farrow was the best singer for this particular song, or Jeff Bridges is the other one. So, you know, you wonder about some of this. But the rest of it is fun. One of the things I liked about The Last Unicorn, and I've always liked, is that The Last Unicorn was my first exposure to anime, really. It was in a number of ways. One, anime art, anime storytelling, right? Because, you know, hey, it came out in 1982. And when I was watching, you know, I was 6, 7, 8, right? I can't remember exactly when I first saw The Last Unicorn. There was a lot of Disney. Let's put it that way, okay? Cartoons were either Disney movies, so you had, you know, Sleeping Beauty and some of that stuff that had come out. We were still a few years away from the Disney Renaissance of The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, right? Or you had your TV shows, which were very much the Saturday morning cartoons, right? They were very often cheap. Sometimes they were toy knockoffs or just toy promotional things like Transformers and things like that. But it was all very light and childish. Okay. Heck, this probably predates Transformers too. Now that I think about it, that was probably coming out in '85. You know, so seeing The Last Unicorn, and also the animated version of The Hobbit, which was made by the same company. These were my first look into, hey, animation doesn't have to be childish. And that sort of shaped my view of animation for a while. Still does, probably. And that was really cool. You know, everyone remembers their first anime. Oh, no, but there's some amazing stuff in the story, which So the book itself is fabulous. If you haven't had a chance to read the book, even I would say even before reading the movie, I'm not going to necessarily, you have to read the book to understand the movie. You don't. But there is so much nuance that is not in the movie. Okay, so one of the first characters that the unicorn meets is Schmendrick the magician. Now, Schmendrick is working for Mommy Fortuna as part of her traveling carnival of supposedly mystical creatures. Most of them are fake. She's cast an illusion over like an old lion to make people think it's a manticore, and a monkey to think so people think it's a satyr, right? That type of thing. She only has two real magical creatures. She has a harpy, and she catches the unicorn. So we meet Schmendrick here in the Midnight Carnival, and he is a bad magician. Okay, he do card tricks and stuff like that, but he is not good. He is a totally incompetent when it comes to magic. He has magical abilities. He just can't get them to do anything that he wants them to do. Okay, and that's part of his through line is he wants to be a master magician and just can't do it. What you find out from the book is that Schmendrick was so incompetent that his master cursed him with immortality until he was good enough to actually learn how to use magic. So, it's that type of thing is kind of fun, right? But Schmendrick is a interesting character because he's a guy who is he wants all of the power and majesty and whatever of being this master magician. But he is generally a kind-hearted guy who's had a rough life. And at one point he gets accused of not caring about the unicorn, just only caring about himself. He says, I wish I didn't care. But and I don't have the quote because there are some amazing lines in this movie. But says, I wish I didn't care because then I could just let her, in this case, stay human, because he had to transform her into a human to avoid the Red Bull. It's a long story. It's a great story. I should have put a spoiler warning. It's a movie from 1982. But he is fascinating as he goes through his journey. Haggard is an interesting character too. King Haggard is a character who he's always searching for happiness. He says in the movie that he won't keep anything around him that doesn't make him happy. And so he lives in squalor because nothing makes him happy. His son did for a while, but he says that passed. But he didn't just kick out his son. The only thing that makes him happy is the sea. And there's the reason for it. It becomes clear throughout the movie is that's where the unicorns are. But he is a fascinating character. And they don't get into it very deeply in the movie, unfortunately. This is one of those things that, if you want to see a lot of the depth of what shows up here, definitely read the book. Okay. But it's the other character that's interesting, and it's not so much necessarily for him, but for a dynamic, perhaps. So I mentioned Schmendrick had to turn the unicorn into a human to avoid, protect her from the Red Bull, because the bull's looking for unicorns, not people. Okay. But of course, she is transformed into a stunningly beautiful woman, right? She was a stunningly beautiful unicorn, and that came with her into humanity. And Lear, of course, is smitten with her because, one, he's living alone with his dad in a crumbling castle. And look, hot girl, woo! But but beyond that, he's trying to get her attention, just to get her to talk to him as much as anything else. And he goes to become a hero, to slay dragons and giants and ogres and all of this other stuff in the hopes of impressing Amalthea, which is what they call the unicorn. And she's not having it. And the line of when Lear is talking to Molly Grew about this, it's like, why won't she, why won't she talk to me? I've done all these great deeds. I was like, maybe she's not the type to be won by great deeds. And that is such an amazing insight. I know it sounds really shallow, but you think about early 80s, right? And heck, even now, there's almost an expectation placed on men that if they want to be able to attract a woman, right? If they want to find somebody who will be attracted to them, they need to be a rock star or an athlete or, ridiculously wealthy. And sure, that helps, right? As Marilyn Monroe put it in one of her movies, boy being rich is like a girl being pretty. You wouldn't marry a girl just because she's pretty, but it helps, right? Yeah, it helps. But the reality is, it's not great deeds that win love. And there's a lot of those types of things that hit me right in the romantic feelies of my soul. Okay, I know romantic feelies is totally the technical term for it. You can look it up. It's in all the literature. It very much turns a lot of the tropes of the hero saving the day, right? That type of thing doesn't happen, at least not in the way that you would expect, right? I opened the show with the quote. Molly's asking Smendrick, what is magic for? What is the use of wizardry if it cannot save a unicorn? This is happening while the Red Bull is now pushing the newly reformed unicorn, trying to drive her into the sea. And Smendrick's answer is, that is what heroes are for. Okay. There's a twist, right? Yeah. No, magic can't solve all your problems. You need a hero. And when the hero steps up, he can't solve the problem either. Directly. Because what's fascinating for me, again, this hits me right in the romantic feels, okay, is unicorns in this world, they don't feel regrets. They don't feel love, right? They know, they can feel sorrow, right? But they don't know what regret is. And when the unicorn sees Lear after he got trampled by the bull, she stops running. And she turns and she brings the fight to the bull. And the bull is not able to handle that. And what's fun is it's not like a big Marvel fight, right? We're not talking about a serious knockdown, drag out. It's just suddenly the unicorn stops running. She stops running from her fear, and she challenges it. And it gets driven before her. That shift of fear, from fear to determination, is powerful, both in the movie and as a lesson for life. If you can face your fears, if you can stop running from them. Now, I'm not saying you need to now submerge yourself in a box full of spiders or something. No, I'm not, but as an allegory, as a life lesson for sometimes you just need to step up and not let your fears control you. That is a powerful lesson. And I love it. There's a lot of the movie where it's like, okay, yeah, whatever, it's sort of set up, but there is so much that happens in the third act that's like, yes, okay, yes, and yes, and yes, and oh my, yes, that is amazing, right? It's just amazing, and there are some fun lines, right? There's some bits I always laughed at. One of the ways they learn to find out how to get down to the Red Bull so they can figure out what's going on is a talking cat, okay? And just about everything this cat says is fabulous, right? It's the cat says something to Molly about Amalthea being a unicorn, and she says, "How did you know that? How did you know she was a unicorn?" The cat answers, "No cat out of its first fur was ever deceived by appearances, unlike human beings who seem to enjoy it." It's like, yes, okay. I totally buy into that, right? But he proceeds to give the clue of what's going on, and she says, "Well, why is it a riddle? Why can't you just give me the answer?" And the cat, who has this pirate accent, by the way, which is why I lean into that a little bit here when I'm reading these, this is because I be what I be. I would tell you what you want to know if I could, Mum, but I be a cat, and no cat anywhere ever gave anyone a straight answer. And it's like, yes, that is every cat I've ever known, ever. Right? And, my sisters and I love this. A lot of these other messages and other things and from the movie just sort of went right over our head. But that one, we all got a kick out of. There's an aspect of this that it's a sweet sorrow, okay? This is not a movie where the prince ends up with the princess, right? The unicorn finds her people. She finds the other unicorns and frees them. But she does not stay the Lady Amalthea to be the wife of Prince Lear. She returns to being a unicorn. And where does that leave what would be the traditional happy ending for that, right? But there's a sweetness to that not happening, okay? It's broken down very well as the last bit of dialogue between the unicorn and Smendrick. Smendrick has realized his power. He's learned how to use it and when not to. And she asks him, "Okay, you're a true wizard now, as you always wished. Does it make you happy?" Smendrick's response here is kind of deep anyway. He says, "Well, men don't always know when they're happy." Okay, which, as far as it goes, is absolutely true. But it's just, I think so. His journey is great, but he asks how she's doing. She talks about she's afraid to go home. She says, "I have been mortal. Some part of me is mortal yet." She says, "I'm no longer like the others, for no unicorn was ever born who could regret. But now I do. I regret." And it's like, this isn't everyone gets a happy ending. But even the sad part is powerful, because here's the end of it. Smendrick tells her, I'm sorry. I've done you evil and I cannot undo it." And she replies, "No. Unicorns are in the world again. No sorrow will live in me with that joy, save one. And I thank you for that part too." It's a powerful message of love and loss, and sort of that, what's that? it's almost a platitude in some ways these days, but better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. That in a lot of ways, that's what the unicorn is feeling. But and you definitely feel that. But her answer of, you know, where she says, I will try to go home. It's like in a lot of ways the hobbits in Lord of the Rings, especially Frodo, they return to the Shire, but they've been changed by the journey. For Frodo, he saved the Shire, but not for him, as he then has to go sail off to the Undying Lands. But even that sorrow is joy in some ways, right? The unicorn succeeded in her quest. And yes, she has learned to regret. But even that regret, she's grateful for what has caused that regret. So, yeah, there's a lot of these. There's a lot there that really hits me. Now, again, the movie is somewhat dated. It's from 1982. You can tell the animation is definitely not as smooth as something you might see today. And said there's some weird spots where you can definitely feel like something is funky with the dialogue. Did they like speed her dialogue up? What's going on? It seems like it's the lines are hitting too quickly. I don't know. But it is, the whole movie for me is magical. Okay. And I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it is the greatest movie of all time. No, it's 100% not. But just about everything about it speaks to me at some level. And I love it. I really do. Even Mommy Fortuna, which sort of creeped me out as a little bit as a kid, said Angela Lansbury does a great job as this witch. You know, she has a harpy. Harpies are not pleasant creatures, okay? And when the harpy is released, you know, she goes and, you know, she goes and kills and eats the witch. Okay, that's kind of how that goes. But there's a discussion that the unicorn and Mommy Fortuna have, and it's along the lines of, hey, the unicorn's like, your death is in that cage. You know, let her go. And not in a, I want her to kill you. Let her go because she abhors captivity of anyone. But Fortuna's like, is no. It admits, no, I'm not going to let her go. At some point, yeah, she will escape and she will kill me. But she will always know that I'm the one who caught her. There's an ego that so many people, I think, have, that they have something that is dangerous. They have something that will kill them. And they are just accepting of that because they have it. Right? And you can see that sometimes, I think, in some people with whether it's wealth or a particular vice or, you know, something. I don't know. But it's that sort of overall ego that says, no, what I have is more important than being good, I guess. Right? I suppose it could be easy to spin that into something more anti-capitalist or something, but I don't think that is the message here, because it's not so much of I have it and therefore I'm wealthy and makes me better. It's I have done something that other people haven't, and I will hold on to that to the detriment of my own well-being. Right? It's like those. I guess sometimes it's, in some ways you could look at it like athletes, like pro football players who destroy their bodies for 3, 5, 7 years, maybe more, playing football, and then need a cane to walk in there by the time they hit 40, right? You know, there are lots of things you can sort of fit into that sort of belief system. But man, it's powerful looking back at that, especially now as I'm an adult and have more experience of what's going on. It's like, oh yes, yeah, her Fortuna's achievements were more important to her than being good, right? And because it's not like Mommy Fortuna was living in extravagant wealth, but darn it, she managed to capture a harpy and a unicorn. Yeah, so there's some amazing stuff. And then so the book goes into more of the history of Captain Cully, um, who is portrayed as a bit of a Robin Hood type character, or that's at least that's how he fashions himself. And the reality is he's not. Okay, but you don't really get into that much in the movie. You get into the book, and there's a lot of depth, a lot more depth into Cully, and it's fabulous. I definitely recommend read the book, watch the movie too. But you know, there's some there's some amazing stuff, and I didn't end up reading the book until much later in life. Right, I was probably maybe 20 years ago when I first read the book. I was in my late 20s, and boy, that set a whole new level of awesome on the movie. So, anyway, I cannot recommend enough just to experience The Last Unicorn. As I said, go in with some expectations, right? Don't go in expecting this to be the greatest thing ever, right? Let's level set. But The Last Unicorn has speaks to me and hits me at a level that few movies do. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today and just share this little bit of fantastical love that I have for a fantastical movie. Not a fantastic movie, a fantastical movie. And with that, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.